Jacob McAllister dropped to his knees in the blood-stained snow and pulled the frozen woman into his arms. Her lips were blue. Her dark hair was matted with ice. And clutched against her chest, she held a letter addressed to him, a letter from a bride he'd been waiting 3 weeks to meet. "Jacob," she whispered, though she'd never seen his face. Then her eyes closed. This is the story of a mail-order bride who fought wolves, blizzards, and death itself to reach a family she'd never met. Stay with me until the very end, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The morning of December 3rd, 1881, started with his youngest son's fever, and ended with a prayer Jacob McAllister hadn't spoken in 2 years. "Pa, Tommy's burning up again." Jacob turned from the stove to find his eldest Henry standing in the doorway with fear carved into his 8-year-old face. The boy was trying to look brave. He always tried to look brave. But his hands shook as he gripped the doorframe. "How bad?" "Bad. He's asking for Mama again." Jacob's chest tightened. Tommy always asked for Mama when the fevers came. The boy was only 4 too young to understand that Mama wasn't coming back, that she'd been gone 18 months now, buried on the hill behind the barn, where the wildflowers grew in spring. He crossed the room in 3 strides past the kitchen table, where 6-year-old Sarah sat frozen over her cold porridge, her eyes wide and worried. She didn't say anything. Sarah rarely spoke these days. The silence had started after the funeral, and never quite lifted. "It's gonna be all right," Jacob said, though he wasn't sure who he was trying to convince. He pushed open the door to the children's room. Tommy lay in the small bed by the window, his cheeks flushed and angry red, his little body trembling beneath the quilts his mother had sewn 3 winters ago. "Pa!" Tommy reached up with shaking arms. "Pa, I want Mama. Where's Mama?" Jacob gathered his son against his chest, feeling the heat radiating through the boy's nightshirt. "I know, son. I know." "Is she coming?" "The lady in Pa's letters. Henry said she's coming to be our new Mama." Jacob closed his eyes. The letters. Those damned letters he'd written in the dark hours after the children fell asleep, desperate and lonely, and half ashamed of his own weakness. Eleanor Weston, a teacher from Philadelphia, 28 years old. The only woman who'd responded to his advertisement with words that didn't feel like a business transaction. "Dear Mr. McAllister," she'd written in her careful script, "I'm not looking for a husband. I'm looking for a purpose. You have 3 children who need someone to show up for them every day. I can be that someone. I don't need pretty words or false promises. I just need honesty and a chance." She was supposed to arrive 3 weeks ago. The stagecoach never came. "Pa!" Henry appeared in the doorway again. "Someone's riding in. Coming fast." Jacob laid Tommy back against the pillows, brushing damp hair from the boy's forehead. "Stay with your brother. Keep him warm." He grabbed his coat and rifle from beside the door. Visitors in winter were rare. Visitors riding fast usually meant trouble. The man who dismounted in his yard was Sam Oakley, the blacksmith from town, his horse lathered and heaving despite the bitter cold. "McAllister." Sam was breathing hard, his breath forming clouds in the frozen air. "You need to come. Now." "My boy's sick. I can't. It's about your bride." Everything stopped. The wind, his heartbeat, time itself. "What about her?" "Stage driver crawled into Dawson's Pass yesterday half dead. Said the coach got attacked 4 days back. Wolves first, then the blizzard hit. He got thrown, lost consciousness. When he woke up, the coach was gone. Horses spooked and dragged it God knows where." The passengers. Sam's face told him everything before the words came. There was a couple headed to California, and a woman traveling alone, young woman from back east. Driver said she was real calm when the wolves came. Said she grabbed a rifle and... He stopped, shaking his head. "That was 4 days ago, Jacob. In this cold." 4 days. In temperatures that killed grown men in hours. Where? Between Miller's Crossing and the old Trapper's Route. 20 miles of nothing but snow and wolves and... Jacob was already moving toward the barn. Watch my children. Henry knows where the medicine is for Tommy's fever. Sarah won't talk to you, don't push her. Just keep the fire going and don't let them out of your sight. Jacob, she's probably... Don't. He spun around and something in his face made Sam step back. Don't say it. I've buried one woman I was supposed to protect. I ain't burying another without at least trying to find her first. He saddled his horse in minutes, movements sharp and practiced despite the tremor in his hands. Before he left, he stopped at the house one more time, looked through the window at his 3 children, Henry trying to spoon broth into Tommy's mouth. Sarah sitting motionless beside them, all of them waiting for someone who might never come. I'm bringing her home, he thought. Dead or alive, I'm bringing her home. The ride east was brutal. Wind cut through his coat like knives. Snow fell so thick he could barely see 10 feet ahead. But Jacob pushed on, following the stage route, watching for any sign of wreckage, any trace of what had happened. He found the first wolf carcass 2 hours in. Shot clean through the skull. Rifle work, and good rifle work at that. His heart kicked. She'd fought. The teacher from Philadelphia who wrote letters about poetry and children's education, she'd picked up a rifle and fought. He found the second wolf a quarter-mile further. Then the third. A trail of dead predators leading through the snow like breadcrumbs. Then he found the blood. Not wolf blood. Human blood. A smear across a snow-covered boulder, already turning brown in the cold. Eleanor. His voice cracked across the frozen landscape. Eleanor Weston. Nothing. He dismounted, following the blood trail on foot. It led away from the main route toward a cluster of rocks that might offer shelter from the wind. The snow here was disturbed marks that might have been crawling, dragging desperate movement. His rifle came up instinctively when he heard the sound. Low. Weak. But unmistakably human. He rounded the rocks and found her. She was wedged into a crevice between 2 boulders, her body curled around something she was protecting. A rifle lay across her lap, empty, but still gripped in frozen fingers. Her traveling dress was torn and blood-stained. One leg bent at an angle that made his stomach turn. But her eyes gray as the winter sky were open, and they were looking right at him. Finally, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I was wondering if you'd ever show up. Jacob fell to his knees beside her. Eleanor Weston. Ellie. Her cracked lips curved into something that might have been a smile. My mother called me Eleanor when I was in trouble, which admittedly was often. She coughed, a wet, rattling sound that spoke of cold in her lungs. You must be Jacob. You're taller than I imagined. You're alive. Debatable. I can't feel my legs anymore. That's probably not good. She shifted, slightly wincing. Before you ask, I killed 7 wolves. Would have been 8, but I ran out of ammunition and had to use the rifle as a club. Turns out that's less effective. He stared at her, this half-frozen woman making jokes while death crept closer with every passing minute. How are you still talking? Stubbornness. Also spite. Another cough. There's a man in Philadelphia who told me I'd never survive a week in the West. I refuse to die until I've proved him wrong for at least a month. Jacob was already assessing her injuries. The leg was broken badly from the look of it. Possible frostbite on her fingers and toes. Hypothermia setting in. She needed warmth, shelter, and medical care, none of which he could provide out here. I'm going to move you. It's going to hurt. I assumed as much. She looked up at him, those gray eyes somehow still sharp despite everything. Before you do, I need to tell you something. In case I don't... You're not dying. Perhaps. But just in case. She reached into her coat with shaking fingers and pulled out a bundle of papers. Letters, he realized. His letters. Crumpled and blood-stained but carefully preserved. I kept them. All of them. I read them every night on the journey. Your descriptions of the children, the way you talked about the ranch, the sunrise through Sarah's window. Her voice caught. I fell a little bit in love with your family through these letters, Jacob McAllister. I know that's foolish. We've never even met. But when the wolves came and I thought I was going to die, all I could think was, I promised. I promised I would come. I promised those children would have someone to show up for them. She pressed the letters against her chest. So I kept fighting. Because I made a promise. And I don't break my promises. Something cracked open in Jacob's chest. Something he'd kept locked away since Mary died. You're not dying, he said again, but his voice was rough now, thick with something he didn't want to name. I didn't ride 20 miles through a blizzard to lose you now. You're going to meet my children. You're going to see Sarah's window at sunrise, and you're going to make that bastard in Philadelphia choke on his words for a lot longer than a month. Ellie's eyes glistened. That's a lot of promises, Mr. McAllister. I don't break mine either. He lifted her as carefully as he could, but she still cried out a sharp, pained sound that she tried to bite back. Her body was shaking cold, having seeped into her bones. Talk to me, he said as he carried her toward his horse. About anything. Just keep talking. About what? The children. Tell me what you remember from my letters. It was manipulation, and they both knew it. A way to keep her conscious, keep her focused on something other than the pain. But she played along anyway. Henry, 8 years old, takes himself too seriously because he thinks he has to be the man of the house. You worry he's growing up too fast. Her teeth were chattering, but she kept talking. Sarah, 6, stopped speaking after her mother died. Loves birds, especially the meadowlarks that nest near the barn. What about Tommy? Thomas, 4. Doesn't remember his mother clearly, which breaks your heart because you can't decide if that's a blessing or a curse. He has nightmares sometimes. You sit with him until they pass. Jacob's grip tightened. He'd written those things late at night, exhausted and lonely, never expecting the words to matter, never expecting anyone to really read them. How do you remember all that? I told you. I read them every night. She was fading, her voice getting weaker. I memorized your family before I ever met them. I know it's strange. I know we're practically strangers. But I already love them, Jacob. Is that crazy? Yes, he said honestly. But I wrote to a stranger asking her to come be a mother to my children. I reckon we're both a little crazy. She laughed, a small, broken sound that ended in a cough. Fair point. Getting her onto the horse was agony. She tried not to scream, biting down on her lip until it bled, but small sounds escaped anyway. Jacob mounted behind her, one arm locked around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. Lean on me. I've got you. I know. Her head fell back against his shoulder. I know you do. They rode through the blizzard, Ellie slipping in and out of consciousness. Every time she went quiet, Jacob would call her name, ask her another question, make her talk about the children, or the letters, or anything that would keep her tethered to the world. Tell me about Philadelphia. Cold. But not like this. This is... She shuddered. This is a different kind of cold. Tell me about the man you're trying to prove wrong. A bitter laugh. His name is Daniel. He wanted to marry me. I said no. He didn't take it well. What did he do? Told everyone I was ruined, spread lies, made sure no respectable school would hire me. Her voice hardened. So I answered an advertisement for a mail-order bride in Montana territory. Figured if I was going to be called a desperate woman, I might as well actually be one. Jacob's jaw tightened. Sounds like a man who needs his teeth rearranged. I tried. Broke 2 of his fingers before his friends pulled me off. She paused. That's probably not the kind of thing a proper mail-order bride should admit. Lady, you killed 7 wolves with a rifle in your bare hands. I don't think proper applies anymore. 8 wolves. The last one I stabbed with a hairpin. Does that count? Despite everything, the cold, the fear, the weight of her broken body against his, Jacob felt his lips curve. Yeah, that counts. They reached the old trapper's cabin at nightfall. It was closer than home, and she wouldn't survive another 3 hours in the cold. Jacob kicked the door open, carried her inside, and laid her on the dusty bed. She was barely conscious now, her skin gray, her breathing shallow. "Stay with me, Ellie." He was building a fire with shaking hands, desperate for warmth. "Stay with me." "Trying." Her voice was a whisper. "So tired." "I know. But you can't sleep yet. Not until you're warm." "Jacob." "Yeah. Your children. They're going to be all right." Her eyes found his through the gathering darkness. "Whatever happens to me, you're going to be all right. I can see it in you. The way you talk about them. The way you came for me even though you'd never met me. Don't talk like you're dying." "I'm being realistic." "Well, stop." He crossed back to her, gripping her hand. Her fingers were like ice. "You don't get to give up. Not now. Not after everything you survived." "I'm not giving up. I'm just—" She took a shuddering breath. "I'm so cold, Jacob. I can't feel anything anymore." "Then feel this." He climbed onto the bed beside her, pulling her against him, wrapping his body around hers. It was improper. Scandalous, probably. He didn't care. "Feel me. I'm warm. I'm here. And I'm not letting go." She pressed her face against his chest. "We haven't even been properly introduced." "Eleanor Weston. I'm Jacob McAllister. I'm 36 years old. I have a ranch, 3 children, and a dead wife. I'm still learning to grieve. I'm stubborn. I work too hard, and I haven't laughed properly in 18 months. But I rode through a blizzard to find you, and I'm going to keep you alive through sheer willpower if that's what it takes." A small, wet sound, half laugh, half sob. "That's quite an introduction. Your turn." Eleanor Weston. Ellie, 28, former teacher, current disaster. Her voice was fading. "I'm terrified of being useless. I fight when I should run. And I just killed 8 wolves to keep a promise to children I've never met." "Sounds like we're a matched pair of fools." "Matched fools," she repeated softly. "I like that." The fire crackled to life, warmth slowly spreading through the cabin. Jacob held her close, monitoring her breathing, feeling her heartbeat against his own. "Jacob." "Yeah. When I meet them, if I meet them, what should I say?" "The truth. That you came a long way to find them. That you're not their mama, but you want to love them anyway. That you're scared and tired and human, but you're choosing to stay. Will that be enough? For Henry, it might take time. He's protective, doesn't trust easy. For Sarah, just be patient. She might not talk to you for weeks. Don't push. Just show up day after day. And Tommy? Tommy's going to love you in about 5 minutes." Jacob's voice softened. "He's been asking for a mama since Mary died. Doesn't really understand she's gone. He just knows he's missing something." Ellie was quiet for a long moment. Then, "He asked for her. During the fever." "How'd you know about the fever?" "You mentioned it. When you found me. You said your boy was sick." Jacob hadn't realized he'd said anything. The panic, the fear, it had all blurred together. "He gets fevers sometimes. Scares the hell out of me every time." "My father was a doctor. He died when I was young, but I remember some things. Herbs that help with fever. Ways to bring the temperature down." Her hand found his in the darkness. "When we get home, I can help." When we get home. Not if. When. Something shifted in Jacob's chest. The frozen thing that had lived there since Mary's funeral cracked a little, letting warmth seep in. "You should rest," he said. "You're safe now. Stay. I'm not going anywhere." She slept, then finally, her breathing evening out into something approaching normal. Jacob lay awake beside her, watching the fire, thinking about the strange paths life takes. 3 weeks ago, he'd been a man alone with 3 children and too much grief. He'd written to strangers, hoping for help, expecting nothing. Now a half-frozen woman lay in his arms, a woman who'd killed wolves to keep a promise, who'd memorized his children's names, who'd crawled through snow with broken legs because she'd said she would come. Outside the blizzard howled. Inside the fire burned. And somewhere in the space between sleeping and waking, Jacob McAllister started to believe that maybe, just maybe, the universe wasn't entirely cruel after all. Ellie woke to pain. It crashed through her body like a wave, her leg, her ribs, her frozen fingers screaming back to life. She gasped, and immediately a hand pressed against her shoulder. "Easy. You're safe." Jacob's voice. She remembered now. The blizzard, the cabin, his arms around her through the night. "How long was I out?" 6 hours, maybe 7. Sun's coming up." She tried to sit and immediately regretted it. Fire shot through her left leg so intense her vision went white. "Don't." Jacob was beside her instantly. "Your leg's broken bad. Maybe in 2 places. I figured that out somewhere around wolf number 5. She forced her eyes open, found his face. He looked exhausted. Dark circles, beard coming in rough worry etched into every line. "You stayed awake all night." "Somebody had to keep the fire going." "Jacob, you need to rest." "I'll rest when you're home safe." He moved to check her leg, his touch surprisingly gentle for hands so rough. "Can you feel this?" Pain, sharp and immediate. "Unfortunately, yes." "Good. Means the blood's flowing." He sat back on his heels. "We need to move soon. Storm's passing, but there's another one coming tonight. And my children? Tommy's fever." Ellie grabbed his arm. "Go. I'll be fine here until you can send someone back." "Not a chance." "Jacob, your son is sick. He needs you. And you'll die if I leave you here alone." His jaw tightened. "I already lost one woman I was supposed to protect. I ain't making that mistake twice." The words hung between them, heavy with grief. She was only beginning to understand. "Your wife," Ellie said quietly. "Mary. You wrote about her. Not much, but enough." "What did I write?" "That she made the best biscuits in 3 counties. That she sang to the children every night. That the house still smells like her lavender soap sometimes, and you can't decide if that's a comfort or a curse." Jacob's hands stilled on her bandages. "I wrote all that. Late at night, I think. The handwriting got messier, more honest." Ellie touched his wrist. "You loved her very much." "I did." His voice was rough. "Still do, I reckon. Don't know if that ever stops." "It doesn't have to stop. Love isn't finite. You don't run out." He looked at her, then really looked, and something passed between them that neither could name. "We need to splint that leg before we move," he said finally. "It's gonna hurt like hell." "I survived 8 wolves, Mr. McAllister. I can survive you playing doctor." "You keep saying 8. I only counted 7 carcasses." "The 8th one's about a mile back. I hit it with a rock after it bit my shoulder." Jacob stared at her. "A rock?" "A very large rock. I was out of hairpins." For the first time since she'd met him, Jacob McAllister laughed. It was short, surprised, almost rusty, like a door that hadn't been opened in years. But it was real. "Lady, you're something else. I prefer formidable, but I'll take something else." The splinting was every bit as agonizing as promised. Ellie bit down on a strip of leather, tears streaming down her face, while Jacob worked quickly, binding her leg between 2 straight branches. Almost done. Almost there. He tied off the last strip. "Can you move it at all?" She tried. Pain flared, but the leg shifted. "Barely." "That's enough. I'm going to carry you to the horse. Then we ride. Slow and careful, but we ride." "How far to your ranch?" 3 hours, maybe 4 in this snow. 3 hours of jostling on horseback with a broken leg." Ellie closed her eyes. "I can do this," she said, not to him, but to herself. "I didn't crawl through a blizzard to give up now." "That's the spirit." Jacob lifted her carefully, one arm under her knees, one behind her back. Scream if you need to. Ain't nobody out here to hear but the wolves, and you already showed them who's boss. Despite everything, she smiled. You're funnier than your letters suggested. Mary used to say I had a sense of humor buried somewhere under all the stoic nonsense. Haven't had much reason to dig it up lately. Maybe that changes now. Maybe it does. The ride was brutal. Every hoofbeat sent shockwaves through Ellie's broken leg. She clung to Jacob's coat face pressed against his chest, breathing through the pain in short, sharp bursts. He rode as smoothly as he could, one arm locked around her waist, murmuring reassurances she couldn't quite hear over the pounding of her own heartbeat. Talk to me, she gasped. Distract me. What do you want to know? The children. What didn't you tell me in the letters? Jacob was quiet for a moment. Henry blames himself for his mother's death. Thinks if he'd been faster getting the doctor, she might have lived. That's not true. Course it ain't. But guilt don't care about truth. His arm tightened around her. He's been trying to be the man of the house ever since. Won't let himself be a kid anymore. And Sarah? Sarah was there when Mary died, held her mama's hand at the end. Something broke in her that day. She hasn't spoken more than a few words since. Ellie's heart clenched. Selective mutism. I've seen it before. A boy in my class in Philadelphia after his father died in an accident. It took months, but he eventually... She'll talk again. I believe so. With patience. With safety. With people who don't push. Jacob exhaled slowly. Everyone keeps telling me to take her to doctors, specialists, like she's broken and needs fixing. She's not broken. She's protecting herself. There's a difference. You really think you can help her? I think I can try. I think trying is all any of us can do. They crested a hill, and Jacob pulled the horse to a stop. There, he said. Home. Ellie lifted her head, squinting through pain-blurred eyes. Below them, nestled in a snow-covered valley, sat a ranch house with smoke curling from the chimney. A barn. A frozen creek. And standing on the porch, 3 small figures watching their approach. The children, she whispered. They're waiting. Been waiting 3 weeks. What if they don't like me? Then we figure it out together. Jacob nudged the horse forward. But I got a feeling about you, Ellie Weston. Same feeling I had when I read your first letter. What feeling? That you belong here. That you've always belonged here. He looked down at her. I know that sounds crazy. We've known each other less than a day. 12 hours, she said. Give or take. 12 hours, and I already can't imagine doing this without you. Is that crazy? Yes. She managed a small smile. But I think we've already established that we're both a little crazy. As they approached the house, the smallest figure broke from the porch and came running through the snow. P.A. Tommy. Even with fever-flushed cheeks and unsteady legs, he was running toward his father with arms outstretched. Tommy, no! Henry's voice sharp with worry. You're supposed to stay inside. But Tommy wasn't listening. He reached the horse, grabbing at Jacob's stirrup, looking up with enormous brown eyes. Pa, you found her. You found the letter lady. Jacob dismounted carefully, keeping Ellie stable in the saddle. I found her son. She's hurt, but she's here. Tommy's gaze shifted to Ellie. She expected fear, maybe confusion. Instead, his face split into a grin so bright it almost hurt to look at. Hi, he said. I'm Tommy. I'm 4. Are you going to be our new mama? Ellie's throat closed. All her prepared speeches, all her careful plans for how to handle this moment vanished. Hi, Tommy, she managed. I'm Ellie. I'm going to try my very best. Okay. As simple as that. Acceptance unconditional and immediate. You're pretty, even with the blood on your face. Can I see your hurt leg? Tommy? Henry had reached them now, tugging his brother back. Leave her alone. She's injured. I know. That's why I want to see. Jacob lifted Ellie down from the horse, and she saw the other two children clearly for the first time. Henry Sirius guarded standing like a soldier awaiting orders. And behind him, half hidden in the porch shadows, a small girl with Mary's eyes and a silence that spoke louder than words. Sarah. Ellie didn't try to smile, didn't try to win her over with warmth or words. She simply looked at the girl and nodded one acknowledgement to another. Sarah's head tilted, curious despite herself. Let's get her inside, Jacob said. Henry, run ahead and get the bed ready in the spare room. Tommy, I can help carry. You can help by staying out of the way. You're still sick. I feel better now. The letter lady came, so I feel better. Inside the house was warm and close, and smelled like wood smoke and bread. Ellie caught glimpses of a life-interrupted toys scattered on the floor, half-mended clothes in a basket, 3 sets of small boots by the door. Jacob laid her on the bed in a small room off the main living area. Pain pulsed through her leg, but it was duller now, exhaustion muffling everything. Rest, he said. I'm going to send Sam for the doctor. The children. We'll be here when you wake up. He pulled a quilt over her handmade, she noticed, with careful stitches. They've waited 3 weeks. They can wait a few more hours. Jacob. Yeah. Thank you. For coming to find me. For not giving up. You didn't give up either. He moved toward the door. That's why we're going to work, Ellie. Whatever this is, whatever we're building, it's going to work because neither of us knows how to quit. She wanted to say more, but exhaustion was pulling her under. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was Sarah standing in the doorway, watching with eyes that held something that might have been hope. When Ellie woke, it was dark. A single lamp burned low on the bedside table, and beside it sat Henry McAllister, a book open in his lap, but his eyes fixed on her face. You're awake, he said flatly. I'll get Pa. Wait. She struggled to sit up. Please, can we talk first? Henry hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. About what? About you. About what you're thinking right now. I'm thinking you're a stranger who's going to try to replace my mother. That's fair. He blinked, apparently surprised by her honesty. It is. I am a stranger, and I know how this must look, a woman showing up out of nowhere, claiming to want to be part of your family. Ellie met his eyes. I'm not going to lie to you, Henry. I won't tell you I love you when we've just met. I won't pretend to be your mother when I know I can never replace her. Then why are you here? Because your father needed help. Because I needed a purpose. Because sometimes 2 broken things can hold each other up better than they can stand alone. She paused. I know that might not make sense. It does. His voice was quieter now. Pa says the fence posts on the north pasture are like that. One's cracked, one's leaning, but together they're still standing. Exactly like that. Henry was silent for a long moment, turning something over in his mind. My ma, he said finally. She was kind. Really kind. She never raised her voice, never said a harsh word. Everyone loved her. She sounds wonderful. She was. And you? He looked at her, really looked. You killed 8 wolves. I did. With a rifle and a hairpin and a rock. Yes. That's not kind. That's violent, unladylike, definitely not what you expected in a mail-order bride. I was going to say incredible. Henry closed his book. Ma was kind, but she was scared of everything. Scared of wolves, scared of storms, scared of being alone. Pa had to protect her all the time. And you think I'm different? I think you protect yourself. He stood, moving toward the door. I'm going to get Pa now, but Miss Ellie, yes. I'm glad you didn't die in the snow. Tommy really likes you already, and Sarah, she doesn't look at strangers like she looked at you. That means something. Before Ellie could respond, he was gone. Jacob appeared minutes later, looking marginally more rested, but no less worried. Doctor came while you were sleeping. Set the bone properly. Said it's clean breaks, no surgery needed, just time. You'll be in bed for weeks, maybe a month or two before you can walk. Weeks? Ellie absorbed this. I'm going to be useless for weeks. You're going to be healing. There's a difference. I was supposed to help you, help with the children, the house. And you will, when you're ready. Jacob sat in the chair Henry had vacated. You really talked to him, my boy. He talked to me mostly. He's remarkably mature for 8. Too mature. He shouldn't have to be this grown up. No, Ellie agreed. But he is. And punishing him for it won't help. He needs to know his strength is valuable, not something to be ashamed of. Jacob rubbed his face with both hands. Mary always knew what to say to them, how to make them feel seen. I work. I fix things. I don't know how to fix this. They don't need fixing. They need presence. They need you to show up day after day, even when you don't have answers. She reached out, touched his hand. That's what I promised in my letters. Not to fix anything, just to show up. And you did. You showed up half dead with a broken leg and blood in your hair. He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. Ellie, I need to tell you something. What? The town. They're going to talk. A woman living in my house unmarried. People like the Reverend's wife, like Mrs. Harmon at the general store, they're going to make your life difficult. Let them. It's not that simple. This is a small community. Their opinion matters for the children, for business. Then we get married. Jacob's hand tightened on hers. What? Isn't that what we planned? Eventually you advertised for a wife, I answered. The paperwork is already half done. She kept her voice steady despite her racing heart. I know this isn't romantic. I know we barely know each other. But I didn't crawl through a blizzard to be run off by gossip. You'd marry me now like this. I'd marry you tomorrow if there was a preacher available. She smiled slightly. Unless you've changed your mind about the whole mail-order bride situation. I haven't. His voice was rough. God help me, I haven't changed my mind about anything. Then it's settled. We'll marry as soon as I can stand long enough to say I do. Until then, I'll be the injured family friend recovering in your spare room, entirely proper. Ellie. He leaned closer, and she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the grief, the desperate hope he was trying not to feel. Why aren't you scared? I'm terrified, she admitted. But fear and action aren't mutually exclusive. You can be afraid and still move forward. You can be uncertain and still choose. Is that what this is? A choice? Everything is a choice, Jacob. Your wife's death, my broken leg, those were things that happened to us. But what we do next, that's on us. And I choose to stay. I choose to try. I choose this family, even though it's broken and hurting and held together with spit and prayers. We're not that broken. No. Because from where I'm lying, I see a man who hasn't slept properly in 18 months, 3 children who've lost their mother, and a woman who just had her leg set with whiskey and a leather strap. She squeezed his hand. We're all broken, Jacob. The question is whether we're going to break apart or break together. Silence stretched between them. Then Jacob lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a kiss against her knuckles. Together, he said. Whatever happens, we do it together. The door creaked open, and Tommy's small face appeared in the gap. Pa, is the letter lady awake? Can I show her my horse? It's made of wood, but Pa carved it, and it looks real, mostly, except the legs are too short, because Pa said the wood wasn't cooperating. Tommy. Jacob's voice held a warning. It's all right. Ellie held out her hand. Come show me your horse, Tommy. The boy bounded into the room, clutching a small wooden figure. He climbed onto the bed beside her, careful of her leg, and presented his treasure with enormous pride. See, his name is Thunder. He's fast. He's beautiful. Ellie turned the carving over in her hands. Your father made this. Pa makes lots of things. He made Mama's chair, the one by the fire, and Sarah's doll, and Henry's bookshelf. Tommy snuggled against her side. Will you stay forever? The question hit her like a physical blow. I'm going to try, she whispered. I'm going to try very hard. Good. Tommy yawned, his small body warm against hers. I asked God to send us someone. After Mama went to heaven, I asked every night. You did. Henry said God doesn't work that way, but I think maybe he does, sometimes, when it's really important. Ellie looked up to find Jacob watching from the doorway, Sarah half hidden behind his leg. The little girl's eyes were fixed on Tommy, on the easy way he'd curled up beside this stranger, and something flickered across her face. Not jealousy, not fear, longing. Sarah, Ellie said softly, would you like to see Tommy's horse too? The girl didn't move, didn't speak, but she didn't look away either. That's all right, Ellie continued. You don't have to decide now. I'll be here, whenever you're ready. Sarah's hand crept up to grip Jacob's coat. Then slowly, deliberately, she nodded. One small nod. It was enough. Come on, you two, Jacob said. Miss Ellie needs to rest. But I'm comfortable, Tommy protested. And she's hurt. Out. Can I come back tomorrow? Ellie smiled at him. You can come back every day. I'm not going anywhere. As Jacob herded the children out, he paused in the doorway. Ellie. I'm glad you answered my advertisement. I'm glad you wrote it. He nodded once, then pulled the door closed behind him. In the darkness, Ellie listened to the sounds of the house settling around her footsteps overhead. The murmur of Jacob's voice. Tommy's chatter, the creak of floorboards. A family, broken and grieving and stumbling forward, but a family nonetheless. And she was part of it now. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, she was part of it. Tomorrow would bring challenges. The gossip Jacob had warned about. The long road of recovery. 3 children who needed more than she knew how to give. A man she barely knew but had somehow promised to marry. But tomorrow was tomorrow. Tonight she was alive. She was warm. She was home. And that was enough to start with. The first week passed in a haze of pain and laudanum and children's voices drifting through the walls. Tommy came every morning without fail, climbing onto Ellie's bed to show her drawings. Wooden toys, rocks he'd found that looked like faces. He talked constantly about his horse Thunder, about the chickens, about the dream he'd had where a bear ate all their potatoes. Do bears eat potatoes? He asked seriously. I don't think so. Good. Because I like potatoes. Henry came in the evenings, always with a book, always pretending he was just there to read. But Ellie noticed how he lingered, how his questions about Philadelphia grew longer, how he sometimes forgot to guard his expressions. Did you really teach children my age? I did, for 3 years. Were they smart? Some of them. Others worked harder to make up for it. She tilted her head. Which kind are you? Both, he said without arrogance. Just fact. Pa says I think too much. There's no such thing as thinking too much, only thinking without acting. He considered this. Is that why you answered Pa's advertisement? Because you were done thinking? Something like that. Sarah was different. She never entered the room, never spoke. But every day Ellie noticed her shadow in the doorway, watching, waiting, testing. Ellie didn't push. She simply acknowledged the girl's presence with a nod or a small wave, then returned to whatever she'd been doing. No pressure, no expectations. On the 8th day, Sarah left something on the threshold. A drawing. Ellie didn't discover it until Jacob came to check on her that evening. This was outside your door. He handed her the paper. Sarah's work. The drawing showed 4 figures standing in front of a house. A tall man, 2 boys, and a small girl. But there was a 5th figure too, lying in a bed by the window, dark hair spread across a pillow. "She drew me," Ellie whispered. "She drew you as part of the family." Ellie's eyes burned. "Jacob?" "I know." His voice was rough. "I know." But not everyone welcomed Ellie's presence. On the 10th day, Mrs. Harmon from the general store came to call. Ellie heard her voice in the front room sharp, carrying deliberately loud enough to reach the spare bedroom. "I'm not saying anything improper is happening, Mr. McAllister. I'm simply saying what it looks like. A young, unmarried woman living in your home in your bed. She's recovering from injuries that nearly killed her." "So you say. But you must understand how the town sees it. The children exposed to this situation. It's not Christian." "With respect, Mrs. Harmon, I don't recall asking for your opinion." "The church community has opinions whether you ask or not. Reverend Whitmore is concerned. Several families are concerned. If this continues, if what continues means saving a woman's life, if you insist on keeping her here without the sanctity of marriage, there will be consequences. People will talk. Your children will suffer for it." Silence. Then Jacob's voice, colder than Ellie had ever heard it. "Get out of my house. Mr. McAllister. Now, before I forget that my mother raised me to be polite to women." Footsteps. A door slamming. Then Jacob appeared in Ellie's doorway, his face tight with fury. "You heard." "I heard." She pushed herself up despite the pain. "She's not wrong, Jacob, about how it looks." "I don't give a damn how it looks." "But your children will. Henry will hear the whispers at school. Tommy will repeat things he doesn't understand. Sarah," Ellie's voice caught. "Sarah is just starting to trust me. If the town turns against us, then the town can go to hell." "Jacob." She reached for him. "We talked about this. Marriage. It's the only solution that protects everyone. You can barely sit up. You're in constant pain. I won't have you standing at an altar just to satisfy small-minded gossips." "Then bring the altar here. Bring the preacher. We'll do it in this room, in this bed if we have to." She gripped his hand. "I didn't survive wolves and blizzards to be defeated by a woman with too much time and too little kindness." Jacob stared at her. Then slowly the anger in his face shifted to something else. "You really want this? Now like this?" "I want to be your wife. I want to be their mother, legally, officially, beyond question. I want Mrs. Harmon and everyone like her to choke on their righteousness." Ellie's chin lifted. "Unless you've changed your mind." "Woman, I haven't changed my mind since the moment I pulled you out of that snowbank." He leaned down and kissed her forehead gentle, despite his rough edges. "I'll send for Reverend Whitmore today. He's concerned about the situation, apparently." "Then he can be concerned while performing the ceremony. I pay my tithes same as anyone." The wedding happened 3 days later. It wasn't much of a ceremony. Ellie in bed, propped up on pillows, wearing a clean dress Mary had left behind that Jacob insisted she take. Jacob standing beside her, scrubbed and uncomfortable in his Sunday clothes. The children lined up at the foot of the bed, Henry, solemn Tommy, bouncing with excitement, Sarah silent but present. Reverend Whitmore performed his duties with barely concealed disapproval, rushing through the vows like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Do you, Jacob Samuel McAllister, take this woman?" "I do." "I haven't finished the question." "Don't need to." "I do." Despite everything, Ellie laughed. When it was her turn, she spoke the words clearly, firmly, looking directly at Jacob. "I do. I absolutely do." "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you man and wife." Reverend Whitmore closed his Bible with a snap. "You may kiss the bride." Jacob leaned down. His lips brushed hers, soft, questioning, nothing like the passionate kisses in dime novels, but real, honest, a promise more than a performance. "Mrs. McAllister." he murmured against her mouth. Mr. McAllister. She smiled. Took you long enough. Tommy launched himself onto the bed, narrowly missing Ellie's injured leg. You're our mama now, for real. Can I call you Mama? Henry says I have to ask first. You can call me whatever feels right, sweetheart. Mama. He tested the word. Mama Ellie. That's different from Mama Mary, so it's okay, right? The innocence of it nearly broke her. That's perfect, Tommy. Absolutely perfect. Henry hung back watching. When Ellie caught his eye, he gave her a small nod. Congratulations, he said quietly. Ma'am. Just Ellie is fine. Or... She hesitated. Whatever you're comfortable with. I'll let you know when I figure that out. Fair enough. Sarah didn't approach the bed, but she didn't leave either, and when Ellie looked at her, the girl held up another drawing. 5 figures this time, all standing together. The weeks that followed were harder than Ellie had imagined. Not because of the pain, though, that was constant, a grinding ache that kept her awake at night and foggy during the day. Not because of the children they were exhausting, but wonderful each one finding their own way to connect with her. The hardness came from inside, from the uselessness that grew like a weed in her chest, choking out everything else. She couldn't cook, couldn't clean, couldn't help with chores, or tend to animals, or do any of the 1,000 things a ranch wife was supposed to do. She lay in bed while Jacob worked himself to exhaustion, while Henry took on responsibilities too heavy for an 8-year-old, while Mrs. Patterson from town came by to cook and clean because Ellie couldn't. It's temporary, Jacob kept saying. You're healing. It's been 6 weeks. I should be doing more. The doctor said 8 weeks minimum, maybe 12. I don't have 12 weeks of patience left. Then borrow some of mine. But she could see the strain in him, the shadows under his eyes deepening. The way he moved slower at the end of each day, exhaustion written in every line of his body. She was supposed to be helping. Instead, she was another burden. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Tommy burst into her room, tears streaming down his face. Mama Ellie, Sarah's stuck. Ellie's heart seized. What? Where? In the creek. The ice broke and she fell through, and Henry went to get her, but now they're both stuck and Pa's in the north pasture and... Ellie didn't think. She threw back the covers, swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood. Pain exploded through her leg, white-hot, blinding. She heard herself scream, but couldn't stop moving. Where, Tommy, show me where. The creek behind the barn. But Mama Ellie, you can't. She was already moving, hobbling, dragging her splinted leg, using furniture and walls to stay upright. Every step was agony, every breath was fire. But somewhere outside, 2 children were in freezing water, and their father was too far away. She made it to the back door, shoved it open. The cold hit her like a fist. Henry, Sarah. She could see them now. The creek was maybe 50 yards away, an impossible distance on broken legs. Henry was in the water up to his chest, holding Sarah above the surface, but the current was pulling at them, and the ice was cracking further. Hang on, Ellie screamed. I'm coming. She fell twice before she reached them. Got up both times. The second time, she felt something shift in her leg, a grinding wrong sensation that meant she'd undone weeks of healing. She didn't care. Henry, can you reach my hand? I can't let go of Sarah. You have to grab my hand. I'll pull you both. Your leg. Grab my hand. He grabbed. Ellie pulled with everything she had, bracing herself against a fallen log, screaming through the pain. Henry's body broke free of the water's grip. He stumbled onto the bank, dragging Sarah with him. All 3 of them collapsed in the snow. Is she breathing? Ellie gasped. Henry, is she breathing? I think... He pressed his ear to Sarah's chest. Yes, she's breathing. But she's so cold. Get her inside, both of you. Go. What about you? I'll follow. Just go. Henry scooped up his sister and ran. Ellie watched them disappear into the house. Then she tried to stand. Couldn't. Her leg wouldn't hold her, wouldn't even respond. She collapsed back into the snow, shaking with cold and shock and the delayed realization of what she'd just done. "Help!" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Someone, help!" But there was no one. Tommy was inside with his siblings. Jacob was miles away, and she was lying in the snow, unable to move, watching the gray sky spin above her. "This is how I die," she thought. "Not wolves, not blizzards. Pride and stupidity and a frozen backyard." "Ellie!" Jacob's voice, distant then closer, then his hands on her face. "Ellie, Jesus Christ, what happened? Why are you out here?" "The children." Sarah fell through the ice. Had to. She coughed and it hurt. Everything hurt. Had to get them. "They're inside. Tommy told me. I came as fast as—" His voice broke. "Ellie, your leg." "I know. You've undone everything. The healing, the setting, doctor's going to have to start over." "I know. Why would you—" He stopped. Took a breath. "Never mind. I know why." He lifted her, and she bit through her lip to keep from screaming. Blood filled her mouth. "Stay with me," he said. "I'm trying. Try harder. You don't get to die saving my children and leave me to explain that to them." "Fair point." Inside, chaos reigned. Sarah and Henry were wrapped in blankets by the fire, both shivering but alive. Tommy was crying huge, terrified sobs that shook his whole body. Mrs. Patterson had arrived from somewhere, heating water, giving orders. "Get her to the bed." "No, not that one. The one by the fire where I can watch her. Someone send for the doctor again. This girl's leg is—" She stopped, her weathered face softening. "Lord have mercy. What did you do, child?" "What I had to," Ellie whispered. Then she passed out. She woke to pain and Jacob's voice arguing with someone. "Understand the risks, doctor, but—" "Mr. McAllister, I'm telling you the bone has shifted. The original break has fractured again in a new place. If we don't reset it now, she may never walk properly." "Then reset it." "The procedure is painful, dangerous. She's already weakened. If she wakes up and can't walk, she'll never forgive herself. Or me." Jacob's voice dropped. "Do whatever you have to do. I'll hold her down." The procedure was every bit as bad as the doctor warned. Ellie screamed. Jacob held her. Tommy had to be carried from the house because he couldn't stop crying. Henry stayed white-faced and grim, watching like he was memorizing something. Afterward, when it was finally over and she lay gasping in the bed, Jacob sat beside her with his head in his hands. "You almost died." "But I didn't. That's not comfort. It's the truth." Ellie reached for him, her hand shaking. "I couldn't let them drown Jacob. I couldn't lie there and listen to your children die." "I know." He lifted his head. His eyes were red. "I know you couldn't. That's who you are. That's why—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "That's why I love you." The words hung in the air. Neither of them had said it before, not directly. They'd talked around it, implied it, demonstrated it in 100 small ways. But never this. "Jacob, I mean it. I love you. Not because you saved Sarah and Henry, though God knows I'll never be able to repay that debt. I love you because you're the kind of woman who throws herself into a frozen creek with broken legs because 2 children needed help. That's not love. That's insanity. Same thing in my experience." Despite everything, the pain, the fear, the exhaustion, Ellie laughed. "I love you too," she said. "For the record, in case that wasn't clear." "It wasn't. You're hard to read sometimes." "I killed 8 wolves for you. I thought that was fairly unambiguous." "Fair point." He lifted her hand, pressed his lips to her palm. "Mrs. Patterson says you need to rest for the next 3 days. No arguments." "None from me. I don't think I could argue if I tried." But rest didn't come easy. The children were saved, but the cost was steep. Ellie's leg had to be reset from scratch. The doctor warned that full recovery could take 4 months now, maybe longer. She might always walk with a limp. "I can live with a limp," she told Jacob. "Can you live with being in bed for 4 more months?" "I'll have to." But she didn't know if that was true. The darkness crept in slowly. At first it was just frustration, irritation at her own helplessness. But as the days wore on, it deepened into something heavier. She stopped eating much, stopped engaging with the children's visits. When Tommy climbed onto her bed to show her a new drawing, she turned her face away. "Not now, sweetheart. I'm tired." "But Mama Ellie..." "I said not now." The hurt in his voice cut through her, but she couldn't find the energy to take it back. Jacob noticed. Of course he noticed. "Talk to me," he said one night, sitting on the edge of her bed in the darkness. "You're disappearing, Ellie. I can see it happening." "I'm right here." "Your body's here, but you..." He touched her face. "Where did you go?" She wanted to explain, wanted to put words to the heaviness that pressed against her chest, the voice that whispered she was worthless, useless, a burden that would only get heavier. But the words wouldn't come. "I'm fine," she lied. "Just tired." "You're not fine, and I'm not leaving until you tell me what's wrong." "Nothing's wrong." "Ellie?" "I said nothing's wrong." The shout echoed in the small room. Ellie heard herself breathing hard, felt tears burning her eyes. God. She covered her face with her hands. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean..." "Yes, you did. And that's all right." Jacob pulled her hands away gently. "You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be scared. But you're not allowed to disappear on me, on us." "I'm not." "You are. You're pulling away from the children, from me. You're building walls and I understand why, but Ellie..." His voice broke. "I can't lose another wife. Not to wolves, not to creeks, and not to the darkness in her own head." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Is that what you think, that I'm giving up?" "I think you're hurting in a way medicine can't fix, and I think you're too stubborn to ask for help." "I don't need..." "Everyone needs help sometimes, even people who kill 8 wolves." She stared at him through her tears. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered finally. "Be helpless. Be dependent. Be the one who needs saving instead of the one doing the saving. So learn, the same way you learned everything else, stubbornness and spite." "What if I can't? What if this..." She gestured at her broken body. "What if this is who I am now? What if I never get better?" "Then we deal with it, together." Jacob took her face in his hands. "I didn't marry you because you could walk, Ellie. I married you because you made me believe I could try again. Believe this family could be whole. Whatever happens to your legs doesn't change that. You deserve better." "Stop." His voice was firm. "Stop telling me what I deserve. I've had enough people telling me things my whole life. What I deserve, what I should want, what my dead wife would have wanted." He leaned closer, his forehead touching hers. "I want you, exactly as you are. Broken legs and bad temper and all." "My temper isn't bad." "You threw a hairpin at me yesterday." "You were hovering." "I was caring. There's a difference." "There's really not." Despite everything, he smiled. "See, this is the woman I married. Fight me. Argue with me. Just don't disappear." Ellie closed her eyes. The darkness was still there. Would probably always be there, lurking at the edges. But for the first time in days, she felt like maybe she could push back against it. "I'll try," she said. "I can't promise more than that." "Trying is enough." He kissed her forehead. "It's always been enough." The next morning, when Tommy crept into her room with his drawing, Ellie opened her arms and let him climb into the bed. "I'm sorry I yelled at you yesterday," she said. "It's okay. Pa said you were having a hard day." "I was, but that's not your fault, and you didn't deserve to be hurt by it." "Are you having a hard day today?" Ellie looked at his hopeful face, his mother's eyes looking out of his father's features. "Today is better," she said. Today, I have you." Tommy beamed and held up his drawing. "Look, Mama Ellie, I drew our family. See, that's Pa, and that's Henry, and that's Sarah, and that's me, and that's you." 5 figures drawn in a child's unsteady hand, all standing together. Ellie traced the figure lying in bed herself, always herself, and felt something shift in her chest. Not healed, but beginning. 3 months after the creek incident, Ellie took her first steps without assistance. They weren't pretty. She wobbled, grabbed at the bedpost, and nearly fell twice. But she stayed upright, moved forward, 1 step, then 2, then 3. "That's it." Jacob caught her as her leg buckled on the 4th step. "That's enough for today. 1 more. Ellie. 1 more." She took the step, then collapsed against his chest, breathing hard, tears streaming down her face. "I walked," she gasped. "Jacob, I walked." "You did." His voice was thick. "God help me, you did." Tommy burst into the room, Henry right behind him. "Did she do it? Did Mama Ellie walk?" 4 steps, Jacob confirmed. "All by herself." 4 steps! Tommy launched himself at Ellie's legs, nearly knocking them both over. "That's amazing. Can you do more? Can you walk to the kitchen? Can you—" "Tomorrow." Ellie laughed. "Tomorrow I'll try for 5. And then 6, and then 7, and then 100. Eventually, if I don't fall on my face first." Henry hung back, but she caught the relief in his eyes. The boy had blamed himself for the creek incident, no matter how many times she told him otherwise. "Henry," she said. "Come here." He approached slowly, wary as always. "I couldn't have done this without you," she told him. "The exercises you helped me with. The times you sat with me when I wanted to give up. You kept me going. I just read to you. It wasn't— it was everything." She pulled him into an awkward embrace. "Thank you." For a moment he stiffened. Then slowly his arms came up around her. "You're welcome," he mumbled into her shoulder. "Ma'am." "Still, ma'am. I'm working on it." She smiled. "Take your time." But not everyone celebrated Ellie's progress. That evening, a rider came from town with news that made Jacob's face go hard. "What is it?" Ellie asked from her chair by the fire. She'd graduated from bed to chair 2 weeks ago, another small victory. "Telegram from Philadelphia." He handed her the paper. "Someone's been asking questions about you." Ellie's blood went cold. "Daniel." "What kind of questions? Where you went? Who you married? Whether you're still alive?" Jacob crouched beside her chair. "Who's looking for you, Ellie?" "A man named Daniel Mercer, the one I told you about, the one who wanted to marry me. The one whose fingers you broke. That's the one." She stared at the telegram. "I thought he'd given up. It's been months." "Some men don't give up. Some men take rejection as a personal insult." Jacob's jaw tightened. "Is he dangerous?" "He's powerful. His family owns half of Philadelphia. If he wants to find me—" She stopped, a horrible thought occurring. "The children. Jacob, if he comes here, then he'll find a family that protects its own." Jacob took the telegram from her shaking hands. "I'm going to send Sam to town tomorrow. Find out who's been asking questions and why. And if Daniel comes himself, then I'll introduce him to Wyoming hospitality." Sam came back the next day with worse news. "It ain't just questions," he reported, hat in hand, looking uncomfortable. "There's a lawyer in town. Arrived yesterday from back east. He's asking about the legality of your marriage, Jacob. Whether it was performed properly, whether Ellie was free to marry." "Free to marry?" Ellie's voice rose. "I was never engaged to Daniel. I refused him twice. He's claiming otherwise. Claiming you were promised to him that running off was breach of contract." Sam shifted his weight. "I don't know how these things work back east, but it's a lie." Ellie pushed herself up from the chair. "It's all lies. Daniel Mercer is a vindictive, petty man who couldn't accept that a woman told him no. The lawyer's got papers, Ellie, official-looking ones. Forged. They have to be. Maybe, but proving that won't be easy. Jacob stepped forward. What exactly is this lawyer threatening? To have the marriage annulled. Have Ellie declared property of her rightful fiancé and escorted back to Philadelphia. Sam's face twisted with disgust. I know it sounds insane, but he's got the sheriff listening. You know how Sheriff Cole is about proper legal procedure. Sheriff Cole's an idiot. He's an idiot with a badge. That counts for something. Ellie's legs were shaking, not from weakness, from rage. When is this lawyer coming here? Tomorrow, likely. He's gathering concerned citizens to support his case. Sam met her eyes. Mrs. Harmon's among them. Of course she was. Let him come, Ellie said quietly. Let them all come. I've faced wolves, blizzards, and broken bones. I can face a lawyer and some small-town gossips. But she didn't feel as brave as she sounded. That night she couldn't sleep. Jacob found her by the window watching the darkness. You should be resting. I should be a lot of things. She didn't turn around. Jacob, if they annul our marriage, they won't. But if they do, the children, what happens to them? Nothing happens to them. They're my children. They stay with me. And me? He came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. You stay too. I don't care what some Philadelphia lawyer says. I don't care what papers Daniel Mercer forged. You're my wife. You're their mother. That's not something a piece of paper can undo. Legally. To hell with legally. He turned her to face him. I didn't ride through a blizzard to find you just to let some bastard in a fancy suit take you away. I didn't watch you drag yourself across snow with broken legs, watch you throw yourself into a frozen creek to save my children, watch you fight your way back from darkness. His voice broke. I didn't fall in love with you just to lose you, Ellie. You won't lose me. Then stop acting like this is already over. He gripped her shoulders. You killed 8 wolves. You can handle 1 lawyer. 9. What? 9 wolves. The 8th one I hit with a rock, remember, that counts. Despite everything, he smiled. That's my girl. Damn right. They went to bed together, but neither slept well. The lawyer arrived at noon. His name was Harold Pemberton, and he looked exactly like Ellie expected, slick, well-dressed, oozing false concern from every pore. Mrs. McAllister, he said, standing on her porch with Sheriff Cole and 6 townspeople behind him, including Mrs. Harmon. Or should I say Miss Weston? I'm here on behalf of Mr. Daniel Mercer, who has a legitimate claim. There's no claim. Ellie stood in the doorway, Jacob beside her, the children behind them. I was never engaged to Daniel Mercer. I refused his proposals. Any papers you have are forgeries. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. The truth, as determined by proper legal proceedings, is what we're here to establish. Pemberton produced a stack of documents. These papers show a formal engagement agreement between you and Mr. Mercer, signed by your father as witness. My father never signed anything. He barely knew Daniel existed. We have his signature right here. Forged. Ellie's hands were shaking, but her voice stayed steady. My father died 8 years ago. I recognize his handwriting, and that's not it. A murmur went through the crowd. Sheriff Cole stepped forward. Now, Mrs. McAllister, these are serious allegations. If you're claiming fraud, I'm claiming exactly that. Daniel Mercer is a liar, a forger, and a man who couldn't accept rejection from a woman who saw through his pretenses. Ellie lifted her chin. If you want to arrest someone, arrest him. He's not here to arrest. No, because there's plenty to charge him with. Fraud, forgery, harassment. I have letters documenting his threats before I left Philadelphia. I have witnesses who saw him spread lies about my character. Where are these letters? Pemberton asked smoothly. Destroyed in the wagon crash that nearly killed me. Ellie met his eyes. Convenient, isn't it? Almost like someone knew I was coming and arranged for the accident. The crowd stirred again. "That's a very serious accusation," Pemberton said, but something flickered in his face. Fear-guilt. "Is it because the driver told my husband the axle snapped? Clean break," he said, almost like it had been tampered with. She had no evidence of this, no proof at all. But the way Pemberton's face went pale told her everything she needed to know. "This is speculation," he said quickly. "Wild fantasy from a woman trying to avoid what a man I never agreed to marry, a life I never wanted." Ellie stepped forward, and to his credit, Pemberton held his ground. "I came to Wyoming because I wanted to choose my own future. I married Jacob McAllister because I love him and his children. I nearly died twice getting here, and I will not let you or Daniel Mercer or anyone else take that from me." The law. The law says nothing about forced engagements. The law says a woman has the right to refuse a proposal. The law says forged documents are crimes, not evidence. These documents are not forged. Then prove it. Bring Daniel here. Let him face me and say to my face that I agreed to marry him. Let him look my husband in the eye and claim ownership of me like I'm cattle. That won't be necessary. I think it will. Jacob spoke for the first time, his voice cold. Because if Daniel Mercer wants my wife, he can come get her himself, and he'll go through me first. Mr. McAllister, I must warn you against threats of violence. I'm not threatening violence. I'm promising defense. There's a difference." The standoff stretched. Pemberton looked at Sheriff Cole, clearly expecting support. But Cole was watching Ellie with something like respect in his eyes. "These documents," he said slowly. "You're sure they're real? Absolutely sure?" "I'm asking the Lady Pemberton." Ellie met the sheriff's gaze. "I never signed anything agreeing to marry Daniel Mercer. My father never witnessed any such agreement. Whatever papers Mr. Pemberton has, they're forgeries. I'd stake my life on it." "You already have," Mrs. Harmon muttered, but her voice lacked its usual venom. "Mrs. Harmon." Ellie turned to face her accuser. "I know you don't like me. I know you think I'm improper, that I don't belong here. But answer me this, if I was the kind of woman who'd abandon an engagement for adventure, would I have crawled through a blizzard with broken legs to keep a promise? Would I have thrown myself into a frozen creek to save children I'd known for 2 months? Mrs. Harmon's mouth opened, then closed. "I'm not asking you to like me," Ellie continued. "I'm asking you to be fair. Look at the evidence, look at my actions, and then decide if I'm the villain Daniel Mercer claims or the victim he's trying to punish." Silence fell. Then from the back of the crowd a voice spoke. "I believe her." It was Sam Weaver pushing forward. "I was there when Jacob brought her home half dead and frozen. I saw the wolf bites the broken legs, the frostbite. That ain't the work of someone running from a rightful engagement. That's the work of someone fighting for survival." "I believe her too," added Mrs. Patterson. "I helped nurse her through recovery. Watched her learn to walk again. Heard her cry out in pain that would have broken most men. That woman earned her place here." More voices joined in. The blacksmith, the general store owner, even to Ellie's shock, Reverend Whitmore. "I performed their marriage ceremony," he said quietly. "I had my doubts about the propriety of the situation, I'll admit. But I've watched this family since then. I've seen Mrs. McAllister teach those children, care for them, nearly die for them. Whatever sins she may have committed in her past, she's more than atoned for them here." Pemberton looked around at the shifting crowd, his face reddening. "This is mob justice," he sputtered. This is community," Sheriff Cole interrupted. "And communities protect their own." He turned to Ellie. "Ma'am, I apologize for this intrusion. Unless Mr. Pemberton has actual evidence of criminal wrongdoing, I see no reason to pursue this matter further." "Sheriff Cole, I insist." "You can insist all you want, Pemberton, but I've heard enough. Your client can file official charges through proper channels if he's got a legitimate claim. Until then, I'd suggest you leave these good people alone." Pemberton gathered his papers with shaking hands. "This isn't over. Mr. Mercer has resources. He won't give up." "Then tell him to come himself," Jacob said. "I'd be happy to discuss the matter personally." The lawyer fled. Mrs. Harmon lingered, looking at Ellie with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I was wrong about you," she said finally. "I don't say that often, so appreciate it while it lasts." "Thank you, Mrs. Harmon." Gertrude. The older woman's lips pressed together. "You might as well call me Gertrude. Everyone else does." Then she was gone too, leaving Ellie and Jacob standing on their porch. Children clustered around them, the weight of the confrontation slowly lifting. "Mama Ellie." Tommy tugged at her skirt. "Were those bad people?" Some of them were confused. One of them was definitely bad. But they're gone now. Are they coming back? Maybe. But if they do, we'll face them together. Tommy nodded seriously. "Good. Because I learned how to throw rocks. Henry showed me." "That's good to know, sweetheart." Henry caught her eye and shrugged. "Seemed practical." It was. "Thank you." That evening, after the children were asleep, Ellie and Jacob sat by the fire. "It's not over," she said. "Pemberton was right about that. Daniel won't give up." "Then we'll deal with him when he comes." "What if he brings more lawyers, more accusations? What if he finds a judge who believes his lies?" "Then we'll fight. Same as we've fought everything else." Jacob took her hand. "Ellie, 6 months ago you were a stranger in a snowdrift. Now half the town just stood up for you against a Philadelphia lawyer. That means something. It means they're good people. It means you've earned their respect, their trust, their loyalty." He squeezed her fingers. "That's not nothing. That's everything." She leaned against his shoulder. "I love you, Jacob McAllister." "I love you too." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Now stop worrying and get some rest. Whatever's coming, we'll face it together." But Ellie couldn't stop thinking about Daniel. He'd already proven he was willing to forge documents, hire lawyers, possibly even sabotage a stagecoach. What else would he do to get what he wanted? The answer came 2 weeks later. A knock at the door late evening. Jacob answered with his rifle ready. A woman stood on the porch, young, well-dressed, frightened. "Please," she said. "I need to speak with Eleanor Weston. It's about Daniel Mercer." Ellie came forward, heart pounding. "Who are you?" "My name is Catherine Mercer. I'm Daniel's sister." The woman's voice trembled. "And I've come to warn you, he's not sending lawyers anymore. He's coming himself." "When?" 3 days, maybe 4. He's bringing men, hired men, the kind who don't ask questions." Catherine's eyes were wet. "I tried to stop him. I tried to reason with him. But he's obsessed. He won't rest until he has you back, or—" She stopped. "Or what? Or until you're dead. He said if he can't have you, no one will." The words hung in the air like ice. "Why are you warning me?" Ellie asked. "He's your brother." "Because I've seen what he's become. Because I found the forged documents in his desk, and the letters proving he bribed the stagecoach driver to sabotage your wagon." Catherine reached into her bag, pulled out a bundle of papers. "It's all here. Everything you need to prove what he's done." "Why would you betray him?" "Because a woman died in that crash, Ellie. The driver told Daniel no passengers would be killed, but Mrs. Henderson, she had a weak heart. The shock of the accident." Catherine's voice broke. "My brother is a murderer, and I won't let him kill again." Ellie took the papers with shaking hands. "Evidence. Real evidence." "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how to—" "Don't thank me yet. Daniel doesn't know I'm here, but he'll figure it out eventually. And when he does—" Catherine looked at Jacob. "He's dangerous, Mr. McAllister. More dangerous than you know. Please protect her." "With my life." Catherine nodded, then turned to go. At the edge of the porch she paused. "Ellie?" "Yes. For what it's worth, I'm glad you escaped him. I just wish I'd been brave enough to help you sooner." Then she disappeared into the darkness. Ellie looked at Jacob. Jacob looked at Ellie. "We need to send for the sheriff," he said. And then we prepare, because Daniel Mercer's coming for a fight." Jacob's face was grim. "And he's damn well going to get one." They sent word to Sheriff Cole that night. By morning, the evidence Catherine had provided was being examined by every official in the territory who could read. By afternoon, warrants were being drawn up. But warrants took time. Transportation took time. And Daniel Mercer was already on his way. "How long do we have?" Ellie asked. 2 days. Maybe less if he's pushing hard." "The children will stay with the Weavers until this is over." Jacob was loading rifles, checking ammunition. "Sam's place is fortified. They'll be safe there." "They won't want to go." "They don't have a choice." She found Henry in his room packing a bag with the stoic efficiency of a soldier. "You know what's happening," she said. "A bad man is coming to hurt you. Pa's going to stop him." "Henry, I want to stay." He turned to face her, his young jaw set. "I want to help." "I know you do, and I love you for it. But your job right now is to protect your brother and sister." "That's what Pa says too." "Because we're right. You're the oldest, Henry. Tommy and Sarah need you." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Will you be here when I come back?" "I'll be here." "Promise." Ellie knelt, ignoring the protest from her leg. "I promise. I didn't survive wolves and blizzards and frozen creeks to be defeated by some coward from Philadelphia. 8 wolves. 9, actually. The one I hit with a rock counts." Despite everything, Henry smiled. "Yes, ma'am." "Still, ma'am." "Still working on it." He hesitated, then threw his arms around her. "Don't die, okay? I just got used to having you around." "I'll do my best." Tommy's farewell was louder, tearful, full of promises to bring back rocks to throw at bad people. Sarah's was silent, but as the Weaver's wagon pulled away, Ellie saw the girl watching through the back. And for the first time since the funeral, Sarah lifted her hand. Not a wave exactly, but close. "She'll talk someday," Jacob said, standing beside Ellie as the wagon disappeared down the road. "She already does, just not with words." They turned back to the house. "What now?" Ellie asked. "Now we wait. And when he comes..." Jacob's hand found hers. "We face him together." "Together," she agreed. But as night fell and the waiting began, Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that everything they'd built was about to be tested. Not just their marriage, not just their family, but who they were at the very core of their beings. She'd survived wolves, blizzards, broken bones, depression, gossip. Now she had to survive the man who'd set it all in motion, the man who'd tried to kill her once and was coming to finish the job. But this time she wasn't alone. This time she had Jacob. She had the children. She had a town that would stand behind her. And she had something Daniel Mercer had never counted on. A will to live that no amount of money or power could break. Daniel Mercer arrived on the 3rd day, just as his sister had warned. Ellie saw the dust cloud first, then the riders, 5 of them, moving fast across the valley floor. "They're here," she called to Jacob. He was beside her in seconds, rifle in hand. "Get inside." "No." "Ellie." I said no. She gripped the porch railing, knuckles white. "I'm done running from him. I'm done hiding. If he wants me, he can look me in the eye and try to take me." Jacob's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he positioned himself between her and the approaching riders. "Stay behind me. I'll stay beside you." "Stubborn woman. You married me." The riders slowed as they entered the yard. 4 of them were strangers, hired muscle from the look of them. Hard faces, cold eyes, hands resting on holstered guns. But the 5th man, the one in front, Ellie would have recognized anywhere. Daniel Mercer hadn't changed. Same handsome face, same expensive clothes, same arrogant set to his shoulders. He looked at the ranch like he owned it already. "Eleanor." His voice was silk and poison. You've led me quite a chase. I wasn't running from you, Daniel. I was running toward something better. His smile didn't reach his eyes. A broken-down ranch in the middle of nowhere. A man who couldn't even keep his first wife alive. Jacob stepped forward, but Ellie caught his arm. Don't. He's baiting you. I know. Jacob's voice was tight. But I'm real tempted to take the bait. Daniel dismounted, brushing dust from his coat with deliberate casualness. I've come to collect what's mine, Eleanor. We can do this civilly, or we can do it the other way. Your choice. I was never yours. We were engaged. We weren't. I refused you. Twice. And you know it. That's not what the documents say. The documents you forged. Ellie pulled out Catherine's papers. The ones your sister provided, along with proof that you bribed the stagecoach driver to sabotage my wagon. Daniel's face went pale. Catherine wouldn't. She did. Because unlike you, she has a conscience. Ellie's voice hardened. A woman died in that crash, Daniel. Mrs. Henderson. She had a weak heart. The shock killed her. That wasn't I never intended. Murder is murder regardless of intent. You can't prove anything. I don't have to. The sheriff's already seen the evidence. Warrants are being drawn up as we speak. Ellie stepped forward, ignoring the hired men shifting nervously on their horses. It's over, Daniel. You lost. Something flickered in his eyes, fear then rage, then something colder. If I can't have you, he said softly, no one will. He drew his gun. Everything happened at once. Jacob shoved Ellie aside, raising his rifle. One of Daniel's men went for his weapon. A shot rang out, but not from Daniel's gun. From behind them. Sam Weaver stepped out from behind the barn, smoking rifle in hand. Drop it, Mercer, now! More men appeared. The blacksmith. The general store owner. A dozen armed townspeople who'd ridden through the night to stand with the McAllisters. Daniel's hired guns looked around, saw they were outnumbered, and slowly raised their hands. But Daniel himself didn't move. His gun was still trained on Ellie. Shoot me, he said. Go ahead. But I'll take her with me. Daniel? Ellie's voice was steady, though her heart pounded. Look around you. It's over. You can kill me, but you'll die a second later. Is that what you want? To end your life in some dusty Wyoming yard? At least I'll have won. Won what I don't love you. I never did. Killing me won't change that. But it'll make sure no one else has you. Is that really enough? She took a step toward him, ignoring Jacob's sharp intake of breath. Daniel, we grew up together. I remember when you were kind, when you actually cared about people instead of just owning them. What happened to that boy? He learned that kindness gets you nothing. Daniel's hand shook slightly. You taught me that, Eleanor. When you rejected me. I rejected a proposal. I didn't reject your humanity. You did that yourself. You humiliated me. You humiliated yourself by not accepting no, by forging documents and bribing criminals, by chasing me across a continent because your pride couldn't handle that a woman didn't want you. Tears were streaming down Daniel's face, now ugly, angry tears. I loved you. No, you didn't. You wanted to possess me. There's a difference. You're wrong. I'm not. And somewhere deep down you know it. The gun wavered. Jacob moved so fast, Ellie barely saw it. One moment Daniel was pointing the weapon at her. The next, Jacob had tackled him to the ground, the gun skittering away across the dirt. They struggled briefly, but Daniel was no match for a man who'd spent 15 years working a ranch. Within seconds, Jacob had him pinned, one knee on his chest. Give me a reason, Jacob growled. Give me one damn reason to break your neck. Jacob. Ellie's voice was calm. Don't. He's not worth it. He tried to kill you. And he failed. Let the law handle him. For a long moment, Jacob didn't move. Ellie could see the war in his face, the rage, the fear, the desperate need to protect. Then slowly he stood. "Get him out of my sight," he said to Sam, "before I change my mind." Sheriff Cole arrived an hour later, warrants in hand. Daniel Mercer was arrested on charges of fraud forgery, conspiracy to commit murder, and attempted murder. His hired men were taken into custody as well. Catherine's evidence, combined with Ellie's testimony, ensured there would be no escape through legal loopholes or wealthy connections. "He'll hang," Cole said quietly, "or spend the rest of his life in prison. Either way, he's done." Ellie nodded, but she couldn't feel triumph. Only exhaustion and a strange hollow relief. "It's really over," she said. "It's really over." That evening, Sam brought the children home. Tommy burst out of the wagon before it stopped moving, running full speed toward Ellie. "Mama Ellie, you didn't die. Henry said you probably wouldn't, but I was worried anyway." She caught him, lifting him despite her legs' protest. "I'm right here, sweetheart. Safe and sound." "Did Pa fight the bad man?" "He did. Pa was very brave." "Did you fight too?" "In a way. I used words instead of fists." Tommy considered this. Words can be like fighting. Sometimes words are the strongest weapons of all. Henry was next, his relief poorly hidden behind his usual stoic mask. "I'm glad you're okay," he said. "Ma'am." Ellie smiled. "Still, ma'am." "I'm thinking maybe—" He hesitated, then looked at his father. "Maybe it's time to try something else." "Take your time. There's no rush." But it was Sarah who surprised them all. The little girl climbed down from the wagon slowly, her eyes fixed on Ellie. She walked across the yard with deliberate steps, stopped in front of her, and spoke. "Mama." One word, barely audible, but spoken. Ellie's hand flew to her mouth. Jacob made a strangled sound beside her. "Sarah," Ellie whispered. "Baby girl, you talked." "Mama," Sarah said again, stronger this time. Then, "I was scared. I thought you would go away like the other mama. But you stayed. You stayed." She threw herself into Ellie's arms. The tears came then, for all of them. Tommy crying because everyone else was crying. Henry wiping at his eyes and pretending it was dust. Jacob pulling all four of them into an embrace that felt like shelter. "She talked," Jacob kept saying. "She talked. After all this time, because she felt safe," Ellie said through her tears. "Because she finally believed someone would stay." That night, after the children were asleep, Jacob and Ellie sat by the fire. "I've been thinking," he said. "Dangerous pastime." "Hush." But he was smiling. "I've been thinking about what you said to Daniel, about kindness and humanity, about the boy he used to be. What about it? You tried to save him. Even when he had a gun pointed at you, you tried to remind him of who he could have been. I don't know if I was trying to save him. I think I was trying to understand." "Understand what? How someone goes from kind to cruel. How love turns to obsession. How rejection can destroy a person if they let it." She stared into the flames. "I wanted to understand so I could make sure it never happened to me. To us." Jacob took her hand. "We're nothing like him. No, we're both stubborn, both fierce, both capable of holding grudges. But we're also capable of letting go, of choosing different." He lifted her chin, made her look at him. "Ellie, I'm not going to pretend I'm not angry about what he did, what he tried to do. But I also know that anger is a choice, and I choose to let it go." Just like that. Not just like that. It'll take time, but I'd rather spend that time building our life than tearing down his. She leaned into him. "When did you get so wise?" "Had a good teacher. She killed 9 wolves and taught me that strength isn't about never falling down." 8 wolves. The rock one doesn't count." "It absolutely counts. You've been saying it counts for months." "I changed my mind. 8. 9. 8. 9 and I'll prove it." He pulled her closer. "Marry me again." Ellie blinked. We're already married. I know, but the first time was rushed. No ring, no dress, no real celebration. You deserve better. Jacob, let me do this right. A real wedding, the whole town, our children standing beside us, everything we didn't have the first time. We don't need. I know we don't need it, but I want it. I want everyone to see what you mean to me, what this family means. His voice dropped. I want to promise you forever in front of everyone who doubted us. Ellie thought about Mrs. Harmon, who'd called her improper, about Reverend Whitmore, who'd rushed through their vows, about the gossips and the doubters, and everyone who'd expected her to fail. All right, she said. Let's give them a show. The wedding was held on the first warm day of spring. Half the town came. The other half sent gifts and apologies for not being there. Even Mrs. Harmon Gertrude helped decorate her thin lips curved in what might have been a smile. Ellie wore a dress she'd made herself during the long months of recovery, white cotton with delicate blue embroidery at the hem. Sarah had helped with the stitching, her small fingers surprisingly steady. You look pretty, Mama, the girl said. She was talking more every day now, not constantly, not loudly, but enough. So do you, sweetheart. Tommy was ring-bearer, a responsibility he took with grave seriousness. Henry stood beside his father, as best man, shoulders squared, face solemn. Nervous? Ellie asked Jacob as they prepared to walk the aisle. Terrified. Good, me too. At least we're terrified together. At least we're that. The ceremony was everything the first one wasn't. Reverend Whitmore took his time speaking about love and commitment and the courage it takes to build a life with someone. About families formed not just by blood, but by choice. About second chances and new beginnings. Do you, Jacob Samuel McAllister, take this woman to be your wife, to love and cherish in sickness and in health for as long as you both shall live? I do. Jacob's voice rang clear. I did the first time, and I'll do it every time she asks. Laughter rippled through the crowd. And do you, Eleanor Grace Weston McAllister, take this man to be your husband? Ellie looked at Jacob. Really looked. At the gray in his temples, the lines around his eyes, the hands that had pulled her from the snow and held her through the darkness. At the man who'd ridden through a blizzard to find her, who'd loved her before he ever saw her face. I do, she said, with everything I am and everything I'll ever be. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you again husband and wife. This time when Jacob kissed her, the whole town cheered. The reception lasted until the stars came out. There was food and dancing and toasts that ranged from heartfelt to hilarious. Sam Weaver told the story of the wolf hunt embellished considerably until Ellie threatened to demonstrate her hairpin technique on him personally. Mrs. Patterson cried. Sheriff Cole shook Jacob's hand and apologized again for the whole Pemberton incident. Even old Mr. Henderson's widow recovered now, and remarried to a gentle farmer from the next county came to offer her forgiveness. You couldn't have known, she told Ellie. None of us could. Don't carry that guilt. I'll try. Do more than try. My Robert would have liked you, I think. He believed in second chances, too. As the evening wound down, Ellie found herself standing apart from the crowd watching her family. Jacob was dancing with Sarah, the little girl standing on his boots, while he shuffled in circles. Tommy had fallen asleep in Henry's lap, exhausted from excitement. Henry himself was talking to a girl his age, the blacksmith's daughter, and actually smiling. This is what I came for, Ellie thought. This is what I survived for. You're thinking too hard again. She turned to find Jacob beside her, Sarah now in Mrs. Patterson's care. How do you always know? Your forehead gets this little crinkle. He smoothed it with his thumb. What's on your mind? I was thinking about the woman I was when I left Philadelphia. Scared, desperate, running from everything familiar because staying meant losing myself. And now I'm standing in Wyoming with a husband, 3 children, and a leg that aches when it rains. She smiled. I'm not running anymore, Jacob. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I want to be. Even with the leg that aches. Even with that. He pulled her close. I love you, Eleanor Grace Weston McAllister. That's quite a mouthful. Better get used to it. You're stuck with it now. I suppose I am. She kissed him then under the stars, surrounded by the sounds of their community celebrating their union. When they broke apart, Tommy was somehow awake again, tugging at her skirt. Mama Ellie, I'm tired. Can we go home? Home. Such a simple word, such an enormous meaning. Yes, sweetheart, let's go home. They walked back to the ranch as a family, Jacob carrying a sleepy Tommy Henry, walking beside Sarah Ellie's hand in her husband's. Pa, Henry said as they reached the porch. Can I tell you something? Always. I've been thinking about what to call Mama Ellie. He glanced at Ellie, then away. I know she's not my real mother. I know that. But she's been more of a mother to me in 6 months than some kids get in their whole lives. What are you saying, son? I'm saying... Henry took a breath. I'm saying I'd like to call her Mom, if that's okay. Not Mama, that was what I called my first mother. But Mom. Something different but still real. Ellie's heart stopped. Henry, you don't have to. I want to, if you'll let me. She pulled him into a hug before she could think twice. Of course I'll let you, of course. Okay. His voice was muffled against her shoulder. Okay, Mom. Mom. She was a mother now. Officially, finally, completely. That night after the children were asleep, Ellie stood at Sarah's window watching the sunrise. Jacob found her there, as she knew he would. Can't sleep. Don't want to miss this. They watched the light spread across the valley together, painting the snow-covered hills in shades of gold and pink. I dreamed about this, Ellie said softly. Before I ever came to Wyoming. I dreamed about standing at a window with my husband watching the sunrise over a place we'd built together. And the reality's better than the dream. She leaned into him. The reality has children and chaos and a leg that never healed quite right. But it also has you. And that makes everything else worth it. Even the wolves. Especially the wolves. Those wolves made me who I am. Ellie McAllister, wolf killer and mother of 3. Has a nice ring to it. They stood together as the sun rose higher, the new day spreading light across the land they'd fought so hard to call home. Spring would bring new growth, new challenges, new adventures for their growing family. Summer would bring work and heat and long days that left them exhausted, but satisfied. Fall would bring harvest and preparation for another Wyoming winter. And winter would bring them closer together, huddled around the fire reading stories, weathering storms stronger because they faced them together. This was what Ellie had chosen when she'd answered that advertisement all those months ago. Not just a husband or a home, but a life built on the foundation of choice. Every day she would choose Jacob, choose the children, choose this wild, beautiful, brutal land that had tested her and found her worthy. And every day they would choose her back. That's what family meant. Not the blood you were born with, but the people you fought for, died for, lived for. The mail-order bride who'd never arrived had found something better than arrival. She'd found home, she'd found family, she'd found herself, and standing in that window watching the sunrise over Wyoming. Eleanor Grace Weston McAllister knew with absolute certainty that every wolf, every blizzard, every broken bone, and dark night had been worth it. Because they'd led her here. To this moment. To these people. To a love that would last a lifetime. Ready for today? Jacob asked. Ellie smiled. I'm ready for everything.